Okay, so I'm Kunal Kaushal, 52nd batch of IIM Calcutta, passed out in 2017. Regarding the undergraduation, I graduated from IIT Delhi in 2013, electrical engineering. Then I worked for a couple of years in Samsung R&D in the image processing and computer science division. There afterwards, I did my MBA from IIM Calcutta, got an internship offer with AT Carney, then did my internship there, secured a PPO, and then joined back the company in 2017. Have been with the company since then, currently a manager at the Gurgaon office. And here have gotten a chance to work across a lot of projects, about 10 plus projects, and across different verticals. So starting from consumer goods, retail, energy and processing industries, transportation, worked with some government projects as well and with startups, and also across continents, right? So in India, Southeast Asia, Middle East, so at different continents as well. So that's a little bit about me. The journey for consultants, at least, it starts with the interview, and maybe I can talk about that first. So start right from the processes that we have in campus, from applying to the companies, getting the shortlist, having those couple of months of preparation, interaction, etc., leading up to the interviews, and then. So in terms of the interview, it's also obviously a mix of the cases and then general sort of questions about your life, whatever you've done, etc. So in terms of the cases, there are, I think everyone knows in terms of there are different type of cases, profitability cases, route to market examples, or people sometimes obviously based on the real life cases as well try and reframe it as the case interview in here, and then obviously a couple of questions around your journey to get to know you as better as a person. How do you think? How it evolved? What has your journey been like? What are the things or learnings that we can sort of look to learn from you? So all of that. So that's the aspect apart from the cases in terms of the interviews. And specifically on cases, I think there is a general, at least not misconception, but at least people want to know that it's not really about the correct answers, at least in the case interviews. It's about the approach or how you're thinking about that problem. How can you at least clearly establish the problem that needs to be solved? And then obviously, how do you approach it? So how do you structure the problem, think about various facets that will be important while you're trying to solve that problem? How can you be at least follow a BC structure? So clearly divide that these are the 4 parameters which are exclusive as well, but those would cover most of the things that will be needed to solve this case. So it's about that general approach that you take rather than actually getting to the correct answer in, say, whatever amount of time. So that's how it goes. So in terms of study process, I think the process itself has been put in place and I think it's common to all of the consulting firms. So it's a process institutionalized to so the primary intent is obviously help the candidates prepare better and also keep them informed or solve their queries and clarifications. So the interactions again here are more one could be cases and sort of formal problem solving. And then obviously the other part where you generally interact with the buddies to get to know about the firm or any questions regarding the process, etc. So again, here are 2 parts. So on the cases, again, I think buddies also take the same lens. They also put in cases similar to what you might expect to be asked in the interviews. So different kind of cases, again, could be based on their personal experiences or the actual cases they have done, or might be something which generally people come up with the cases to at least test out few aspects of the problem solving. And apart from the cases, I think the other important thing from interacting with the buddies is to show yourself as a person as well. So to show some of the interest, why are you interested in consulting? Ask actual relevant questions in terms of what do they do, some things about the firm, to make sure that they also know that there is interest from you, apart from the problem solving skills, obviously, which is necessary, hygiene and almost required in all the sectors or kind of roles that people go from the campus. But at least from consulting, showing that enthusiasm and interest in knowing about that company, the work, the type of activities that do, is important. And it is kind of helpful for both, because when you ask those questions, get those answers, it also gives you the perspective of what it's going to look like, and is that something that you like, want. Some people I've seen are knowing the details, etc. They decide that maybe this is something that I'm not interested in, or maybe that's not my first priority. So having that all-round conversation and maybe not just focused on the cases is what I would say to keep in mind in terms of the buddy cases. It's two things that I talked about. One on the cases, problem solving. So similar set of skills. How are you able to solve the problem? Again, the approach there, where you're able to at least understand what needs to be solved. What is the approach you're taking? What are the factors you're considering? So how well a person can actually solve a problem if he or she is given and sort of left to solve it. So that is one part of it. And this secondly is around how you come across it. So one, communication, how are you able to speak? And it's not just about speaking English very fluently, but actually being able to at least communicate what you're thinking, and how are you approaching if a problem, or in general if you want to talk about anything, you want to understand anything. So it's a way of communication and it's showing that interest. I think those are the two major aspects that buddies at least look to when they are having these interactions with their respective buddies or the candidates in the campus. So in terms of work-life balance, I would say it varies. So there are phases which are a little intense in terms of the work that you do. And it could vary by type of projects or on projects as well. Sometimes there are these phases where there's a little bit of extra work, or some deadline is coming up, some milestone we need to achieve. So it varies from that perspective. And then on the other hand, there are lean phases as well, where at least say post-important meeting or important deadline or a milestone that has been achieved, post that it's a relatively lighter time, or on certain projects as well, or proposals or diagnostics that you're doing. At certain instances, it is more manageable and sort of, if you were to quote work-life balance, it's more balanced in certain cases. So I cannot just put an umbrella statement to it, because it depends on type of project, type of people that you are working with, the timelines in which you need to deliver things. So it has its own sort of crests and troughs in terms of the work-life balance. Overall, at least my perspective, it has been good. I think it's also up to you as well to manage it a little bit. Keep open the lines of communication, and tell very clearly if you feel this amount of work is going to take X amount of hours, etc. So that at least there is no added pressure or more time just because you didn't communicate that clearly. So it's about sort of proactive management as well. And then sometimes it's about what is there available in terms of the external circumstances. A lot of exit opportunity, and in fact, this is one of the USPs at least that consulting as a profession has, because of the immense learning skills, a structured way to solve the problem, communicating, interacting with the clients, a whole lot of skills that you learn in this profession, right? So, and all of them have like a great value in terms of the industry roles, startups, or wherever you're planning to switch to after this. So there are always exit opportunities, attractive exit opportunities. It also depends on the people and at the levels that they're doing. So like from starting from business analysts to associates to managers, etc. All of them might have different preferences in terms of where they would want to move next when they're moving from consulting. So while that might vary at each level, there are enough and more people at least interested to work with you, to hire you because of the skill set that you acquired in a short amount of time. And personally, I have seen people move to all parts of the industry. So go and work with startups, go and work with established industry players. Sometimes move with some of the government bodies. People have gone on to do MBAs. Then people have also moved on to PCP space as well. So a lot of opportunities, and some people have actually started something of their own as well. So immense opportunities that way. So I would say, if I have to be honest, there are no particular myths per se, because at least in my case and what I've seen of consulting firms, etc., whenever they come to present, etc., and give their replacement talks and during the interactions as well, they are pretty comprehensive, or at least clear about what to expect and not. So the kind of work that are expected to do, the independence, the responsibility that you are given, etc., that is all very clearly communicated, and that at least when I came in, it was not a myth. And obviously, when we talked about work-life balance as well, it varies sometimes, obviously, because it's a high impact profession as well, because you're working with the CXOs, etc., trying to sometimes alter their entire business their operating model or the business strategy, etc. So it comes with its own set of responsibilities, challenges, and then opportunities as well, because when you do create that impact, it's highly appreciated, given ID visibility. Talked about some of the conferences, policies that the government or the companies might entail. So people are very clear in terms of what to expect. All of the things that create learning opportunities, interaction, responsibilities, managing difficult situations, solving complex problems, all of that has been correct. I think a surprise, what I would say, a pleasant one, I think, at least in my case, in terms of Carnegie, that came in was, in spite of all these pressures and at least people who have their own set of work as well, they have been quite supportive, collaborative, I would say. So whenever someone needs any help, you might expect that people might not have that much time to spare with you, but when you actually ask for help, it is there, and people actually go out of their way to at least ensure that you're given or provided help, whatever you need, so that at least your problem is resolved. I would say many highlights. So I personally like traveling. So at least pre-COVID times, I got an opportunity to be on a lot of traveling projects, and as I mentioned, move out of India as well to Southeast Asia, Middle East, European locations. So that has been quite a sort of one of the highlights for me. Going to those places, learning or working with people and their culture. Obviously, the locational differences is there, and something to look out for. Fancy hotels, flights, points, etc. At least that's something to highlight. But this is more on the sort of corollary of the profession. In terms of the actual profession as well, some of the key highlights would be when your work is actually completed. You go ahead and present to the say CXO, CEOs, CFOs, and then you see that work actually being appreciated and then being translated into actual strategy that they decide to entail. Some of the due diligence that we have done, then clients have acted on it, and actually where they actually go ahead and invest in a company or bought out a company, etc. So those kind of highlight is actually that gives a lot of gratification and appreciation for the work that you have done. That would be, I think, few of the highlights that continue to happen on almost a daily basis. Lowlights, I would say, when sometimes times are tough, then there are obviously instances where it gets intense. Also, sometimes whatever you plan doesn't go according to the plan, what you would have wanted, etc. But I would say that it's part and parcel of the process or the kind of work you do. So that would be a few highs and lows just from my perspective. So I'd say, and obviously being there in their shoes at least 4 years back, so can understand at least their mindset and also the added complexity of this COVID times. I hope at least this time around people are coming to campuses, and that is how it's going to happen. But it's irrespective of whether you're on campus or virtually, a few things at least you need to prepare. So there's no getting around the fact that you need to prepare practice cases with amongst yourself, your case groups, with the buddies that have been allocated to you. So that preparation is without a doubt necessary. So the more you prepare, the more you get adept at solving problems, and it actually helps. So when I also started, I would say I was not one of the ones who really knew that this is what I'm going to do, and I had done some preparation before coming to colleges, which some other people might do. But at least when I started, once I joined it, I prepared with my the group that I had, the fellow with friends, etc. Also prepared with buddies. So preparation is there, but with that as well, a lot of people sometimes just take a lot of unnecessary added pressure, which tends to come onto you. But the trick is to not take it too seriously, to make it a life and death kind of situation. Just approach it as something that if you are prepared well and you have a positive outlook towards it, more often than not, you'll be able to do well in there. So just keeping yourself a little calm about it as well, and not making it super serious or super anxious about it, is also one of the key things that you should look to do while you are preparing through the process leading up to the interviews. And thirdly, at least what I would say, and I have maintained this throughout, that ask for help wherever you are stuck. So be it with your friends, with your professors, with your buddies, or wherever you know. More often than not, you'll see that if you ask for help, generally people are there to help you out.
Everyone. So I'm Untitled Gupta. I graduated from IIT Delhi in 2018, and thereafter I did 2 years of consulting work in PwC. I was mainly working in logistics and infrastructure sector, mostly in Middle East and India. And I did my summer internship in McKinsey. Basically, there are two steps of consulting prep. First is your CV, because your entire shortlist would be dependent on that. The second thing is about case prep, which includes buddy sessions as well as the final partner case. Regarding the CV prep, you just need to talk to more of your seniors from your college, and after multiple reviews, I think the CV is well taken care of. You should just ensure that they don't have any basic errors like white spaces or grammatical errors. Coming to the case prep, I think you should be well prepared about it before the shortlist comes, because just immediately after shortlist, your buddy rounds will start, and you need to give a good first round impression to the buddy. So your prep ideally should be should start with profitability cases, then GTM cases, and finally unconventional cases. Now you need to utilize all the resources available, be it your prepcom or your seniors, and even the buddies. I would say buddies are the most important part, because once you're doing the prep, you would reach a plateau, and these buddy rounds or the cases with buddy actually help us to improve our performance exponentially. It's a very difficult question to answer actually, because consulting is one sector which I believe actually values diversity. My McKinsey cohort had people with like 3 years experience. At the same time they were freshers. There were people with consulting experience, engineering backgrounds, finance experience, commerce background. So all the diversity one can imagine. But one thing that was common with everyone was they excelled somewhere in their life, either in one particular section of the CV or another. So maybe you can say that their overall CV stood out amongst their peers, and it can be through excellent work in either one or two sections, or maybe good work in all of the sections. Regarding the preparation part, yes, I had a lot of myths. The biggest myth again was whether my CV is good enough for consulting or not. Second, the myth was how consulting is actually looking like. Like, would it be too hectic for me? Am I cut out for that or not? And all of these things were actually. Uh, so I talked to a lot of seniors before coming to IIM, and even after coming here, I was in constant touch with a lot of seniors who had consulting experience, and these myths were gradually cleared by them. Obviously, there is regarding the CV, there is no one size fits all. Every CV is treated differently, so there was no question of whether my CV is good enough or not. Secondly, talking about another myth I had was MBBs, specifically consulting sector, and specifically MBBs. They have a very cutthroat competition, and a person like me who is an introvert might not be able to survive in that sector. But again, I was very happy to listen to the experience of my seniors, and eventually I also had that experience. The people there in these firms are very helpful. During my internship, I had almost a daily session with partners and manager, and they made it a point to check on my well-being, especially of both of interns. And even my HRs and the co-intern were super helpful. My overall experience was very good, and the best thing about consulting is that no 2 days look alike. So, I basically, just to give you a brief, I was helping a global IT firm to implement strategy to increase its revenue. And my major role was to implement multiple workshops for the client to guide them on the implementation, and also connect with the teams from client side, make them understand about the project, recommend about the recommendations that we have, and oversee the implementation strategy they are proposing. Now, I had to do multiple calls with clients from all over the world. Sometimes my calls started early in the morning, sometimes they were late in the night. But again, no 2 days looked alike, and overall it was pretty chilled out. I really liked new challenges that were coming to us every day. And within a short span of 7, 8 weeks, I was working on 2, 3 different things. I don't believe consulting is all about work, work, work. And I would say maybe it's the only sector which actually flaunts the parties. Like the companies coming to our campuses when they give presentations, they actually talk about offsites and the parties that they have. So it's also a fun place to work at. But yes, it sometimes do get hectic depending on the project. For example, during my internship, I had co-interns who were working 10, 12 hours a day, but my workload was almost 50% of that. So it highly depends on your project. But yes, 18 hours is a bit too much. I would say on an average, I think 10 to 12 hours should be the norm. I have 2 points for that. So first of all, someone's inclination to go to a sector or prepare for it should not depend on the probability of getting shortlisted. It should actually depend on whether they like that sector or not. Because they might, if they like that sector, they might not get shortlisted in summers, but they can always work for getting that in finals. Coming to the other part about spikes, I think uh, it's very subjective. What might constitute as a spike for the firm might not constitute as a spike for the fresher or for the PGP one or the other way around. So it's very difficult to judge on an very individual level whether the company would give shortlist or not. I would suggest that persons should definitely, if they like consulting, they should definitely start preparing for it because case preps actually help in other sectors as well. You have GTMs or guesstimates in marketing, you have similar cases in Trotman. So this prep would eventually help either in summers or eventually in finals also. Great. So by now you would have done a lot of buddy cases already and a lot of cases with PGP2. So your basic structures, etc., would already be in place regarding your profitability cases or your GTM, etc., or whatever the conventional cases are. And you would also have received hotlist or you would have received the preference order from the companies where do you stand. Now, you just have to convert that hotlist or the preference. The onus is on you not to screw the final interview with the partners. Coming to what to practice, basically, I think the PGP one should be focusing more on conventional cases, doing a lot of cases with other PGP ones, basically the buddy cases, and also PGP2's cases, which might be their ex-buddy cases or their actual interview cases. Because a lot of these cases are very unstructured and they actually reflect how an actual interview might be happening on the D-Day. Another thing that can help interview in the D-Day is be preparing for the industries. So a lot of industries like airlines or let's say cement industry, they would have a very different revenue and cost structures. And a lot of people are not aware about that. So sometimes reading about these industries, how they work, how their cost structures are, can help in an actual interview. And finally, the easiest part is about personals. So you should spend at least a day or two on your personals questions. A Prepcom would have already given you those lists because it's the easiest part. And most probably consult companies would not be asking you those, but you definitely do not want to screw up the easiest part. So be prepared for that just in case a partner asks you that. So those are the tips I would have for any PGP one listening to this video. So one final advice I would have is that you are already in IMC and this brand carries a lot of weight. So things cannot go bad for you right now. You would definitely do good and help that self-confidence when you go and sit in a company's interview. They are looking to select you. You just have to be presentable. You just have to keep all those hygiene factors in the mind. You have to be well prepared, have a smiling face, be confident in your abilities. You have given a lot of time in preparation, more than 2 months, and a lot of interviews, mock rounds with Prepcom, with PGP2s within yourself. And all of that practice would actually reflect in your final interview. So just have that confidence in yourself. Just coming to one thing about when you ask about consult specific. So consulting interviews are good in a sense that they don't judge you on your technical skills or any technical knowledge. You are not supposed to know anything beforehand. It's how you solve a problem is what they are checking. So the best thing is you don't have to memorize anything. If you have prepared for these 2 months, case solving would be by now very easy for you. You just have to think that whatever you are doing has to be in a structured and a logical manner. That's all they are looking for. So always keep one thing in mind, you have to be messy. That's it for consulting specific people. A lot of people actually face this dilemma when they don't get shortlist initially. But consulting is not just about top 3 or 4 firms. There are a lot of good firms that are coming to IIM Calcutta. Those who release shortlist very late. In fact, if I'm not wrong, there are firms which would be releasing their shortlist just 2-3 days before the actual interview. And those are very, very good firms. They are no less than the top 2 3 firms. And if people are genuinely interested in consulting, they can aim for those companies. They should not stop practicing about the cases, and because cases eventually help in broadband interviews, marketing interviews, etc. So they should be looking forward to those companies, gain some experience in summer internship, see if consulting is made for you, and then again give your best shot in finals.